It's if you're committing to ballpoint or like an inkjet weapon, it's good to get comfortable and familiar with a lot of this. But again, I love the painting here to cut that person's options off. And now the other person can't go anywhere. They're 2 down, and again, this is where you make the decision. Either we start moving forward, get paint for our inkjet, or we paint all the area around us, which I think we got most of that paint with the last couple of picks, but there's probably some areas. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about this. You could paint some of this, but I probably look to be a little bit more aggressive in this kind of spot. Sitting back here, like the earlier poking that you were doing on like the bamboo and stuff, I like this, even though there's a good chance that you don't get a pick. Sometimes you might, but as long as you space yourself out knowing you're the longest range weapon in this match, I'd rather you stall them back here a little bit longer, and then when they end up using whale and specials and stuff, then you can like swim back and get into this type of spot. But I'd rather us stall closer to their side of the map for a little bit longer in this kind of scenario. It just feels like we don't get a ton of value in this kind of spot. Like, I like you being in the spot for the retake, but I think there's more that we can do before we get to that point. Again, if there was a ton of paint all over for you to take advantage of, then sit up here and do that painting, and that's totally reasonable. But, you know, because you didn't paint, like A, the enemy team gets back in for free, and they can start using specials closer to mid, and you didn't get any paint, so you're nowhere closer to your special. So like, this isn't a bad spot, but you could do better. I think one consistent thing when it comes to ballpoint is that obviously we want to take space, play in long ranges, but we also want to be flexible with our positioning. When we're looking at the comp overall, yeah, I'd say overall we've got solid painting. Wiper is going to want to be taking fights probably around these sides or potentially out in the open here. If they're able to push onto the enemy bridge, they can like control the bridge pretty well. And then your splash will be doing a lot of painting, and we'll find opportunities for crabs. And when it's safe, they can like push forward as well. When it comes to like, should I use inkjet or not? Your front line, you want them to be able to follow up on what you're doing. Inkjet provides an opportunity for your teammates to move forward, and it provides your team an opportunity to get splats. Part of using inkjet is getting good paint overall and being able to like spam it pretty frequently. So as you're coming into mid, I'd like to see you get a lot of paint down for the initial inkjet. Yeah, we got stuck in these weird spots. Yeah, mid-range does really well if you're sitting on these types of ledges. You know, like a squeezer, a nautilus, a bamboo, they're going to be able to like potentially splat you there. I would like to see you get more paint around the sides, getting some paint over here or paint over here, paint out of your spawn. Like, you do overall want to like move forward and get into position. I think it's okay early on to establish like a good area of paint around you with your short range. You should be able to have special around this time or earlier, because again, it helps with your teammates. Ouch. Because yeah, everyone's getting their specials and you're not able to fully play. You have to play a more honest game. It just makes it a little bit tougher to compete. Nice hammer from your teammate. I like the jump. Again, do what you can to help your teammates. I wouldn't try for that fall off. Again, this is a scenario. Instead of like, I know the jump is there and we want to be able to deal with it, but we can deal with it through like good painting. There's 3 of them on low ground, and if we had an inkjet ready, we can like punish them super hard with an inkjet. Okay, now we have inkjet. I would be looking for opportunities. I would probably look to swim a little bit more aggressively here. I don't think I'd drop on the ledge because you might actually get spotted. Try to throw a fizzy bomb. Like, if you want to focus on like a specific target, throw a fizzy bomb toward them and then like immediately pop your jet after. And like that gives you some paint and some damage and some information when you're first going in. That makes getting value out of your inkjet a little bit better. Mid can be a little bit awkward and there aren't a ton of options when it comes to movement. So if you find someone that's like sitting over here, they're kind of trapped and it limits their options of movement, and you should have a higher chance of getting a splat with your inkjet. But again, I think this is totally fine. I would have liked to see something like this a little bit earlier, but like where you did it, you had a target in mind. Like, all this is sick. Love this. Nice. And this is where, as a ballpoint, you want to be flexible with your movement, and you have to be aware and like play around your teammates. Because if you can get up onto this bridge, like that's really good. Otherwise, you just want to get some general paint. So like getting some paint over here, a little bit on the bridge, but just make it awkward for them. After you back up and they start using the whale, I'm okay with you just swimming back all the way and getting back to this high ground so that you can keep a good distance and a good range. You can certainly maneuver in these types of areas. Like, I don't want you to just sit here. I like that you're like, especially when you all have an advantage, you're dropping, you're moving forward. I love that. But when they start using their specials and they're, you know, they have their advantage and they're taking space toward you, I would look to potentially reposition in that kind of spot. And again, a lot of these decisions on positioning is relative to the weapon you're playing, the weapon on the enemy team, special situation, and what's going on there. So there's a lot that you have to consider. All of the mid-range does really well on this map for people that lurk on these ledges for too long, and like you over here. And like this pick is sick. This pick, awesome. And then you saw the big swig, and I think because we know that there's no one coming from this way, I think fighting that swig and getting shots is totally fine. But like at this point, we don't have this clear play on them. I want us to start moving and repositioning. We just need to like be more proactive with our just general movement. We don't want to get stuck laser beaming someone for too long. But when you overstay around ledges for too long, you'll get eaten up by mid-range weapons. When it's like a 3v3 and your teammates are like, one's looking to drop and one's already fighting, we can generally paint around in short range as a ballpoint. And like both, it helps with getting control of the zone, and it also gives your teammates more options to maneuver around and to drop on, and they know what they're dropping into. Because if we had general paint around this area, your hammer would probably have an easier time on this person, which I think they end up getting because this person gets stuck in a corner. But they get a bunch of free points, and there's situations where your teammates potentially could have gotten down. So when there isn't an obvious target, either look to reposition or look to get paint. I would also look to like get on top of these uninkable areas while you're like painting and stuff. Partially it gives you like a little bit of additional height, but the other thing that's nice is that if for whatever reason like they do start shooting at you, you're able to continue moving. As a ballpoint specifically and just Splatlings as a whole, you really can take advantage of these uninkable areas. The other thing is like if you're trying to paint and stuff, like these things just kind of get in the way. We have a better vantage point if we're sitting on top of these uninkable areas because these things aren't in the way of our vision and we get a more open look. But like if we're not going to be moving up with the rest of our team, we want to clean up mid. We don't want to just like kind of sit there, you know, like getting paint behind you, getting paint around you, anything that you're able to get so that you can get your inkjet, which you already have your inkjet, but you know, it helps build special as well. I would look to do that a little bit more proactive. We just seem a little bit unsure of what we're trying to accomplish setting up here. If you move up with your teammates, like there's a ton of ledges for you to be able to use to get height and help fight with your teammates. That's how you can get value out of your inkjet, is playing around ledges or playing around super high points. And when this whale gets used right here, when this thing expands, this is like the exact gen animation. This is a joke for nobody except for me, or a reference, but I've never noticed that before. That's kind of funny. But this is good here. Again, take our high ground here so it's easier to paint this and it's easier to paint around this. Yeah, like you see how awkward it is to like get paint in these spots? And those are like the avenues that a lot of their weapons are going to be maneuvering around in mid. So if we can clear those areas out, we're chilling. It's if you're committing to ballpoint or like an inkjet weapon, it's good to get comfortable and familiar with a lot of this. But again, I love the painting here to cut that person's options off. And now the other person can't go anywhere. They're 2 down, and again, this is where you make the decision. Either we start moving forward, get paint for our inkjet, or we paint all the area around us, which I think we got most of that paint with the last couple of picks, but there's probably some areas. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about this. You could paint some of this, but I probably look to be a little bit more aggressive in this kind of spot. Sitting back here, like the earlier poking that you were doing on like the bamboo and stuff, I like this, even though there's a good chance that you don't get a pick. Sometimes you might, But as long as you space yourself out knowing you're the longest range weapon in this match, I'd rather you stall them back here a little bit longer, and then when they end up using whale and specials and stuff, then you can like swim back and get into this type of spot. But I'd rather us stall closer to their side of the map for a little bit longer in this kind of scenario. It just feels like we don't get a ton of value in this kind of spot. Like, I like you being in the spot for the retake, but I think there's more that we can do before we get to that point. Again, if there was a ton of paint all over for you to take advantage of, then sit up here and do that painting, and that's totally reasonable. But, you know, because you didn't paint, like, A, the enemy team gets back in for free, and they can start using specials closer to mid, and you didn't get any paint, so you're nowhere closer to your special. So, like, this isn't a bad spot, but you could do better. That's pain. It happens though. Alright, so there should be a ton of base paint. Yeah, there's a ton of base paint. Y'all are in control for most of the game. So I want you to get your special like as you're moving in. Y'all just need one break and you have a good amount of time. So in a situation like this, I want us to have our inkjet for whatever the final play is. I want us to play for an inkjet. It's relatively inconsequential in this kind of scenario. Like, looks like y'all are just in control. Especially in zones, like there's a lot of times where you're just gonna, like there's a chance for you to sit there and do nothing. And I want us to find more valuable ways to, with that time, effectively. And what I mean by the fast proactive rotations, it's just like the little spots where like, you know, you get the pick on the V shot here, and then you're shooting at the big swig here, and then someone else comes over, and I think it was like the bamboo or something like spots you in the spot. And also in situations where like, you know, your team has control of zone and you're just kind of sitting here, maybe you get a fizzy bomb out, maybe you paint like a tiny bit. Like there's just like more that you can be doing. And if you want to end up on this spot when the enemy team's pushing in, that's fine. But let's waste some time. Let's get in front of the zone. You know, sit here, get shots over here, get shots for people that want to go this way. You know, deny them the ability to just push through this lane. And if they start using a bunch of specials and if you get pressured a lot, you know, back up. If you're quick about it, you can rotate back up to the spot with no negatives at all. But just in general, we need to be thinking, like if we're sitting in a spot for like multiple seconds, whether it is like us painting a certain spot or us shooting at someone at a good distance for a long enough time, at a certain point, there has to be something internally in our head that's like, okay, we probably should be moving at this point. And I just want us to be more proactive, because the more that we move, like there's a better chances of us being able to paint more, which means we get more inkjets and have more opportunities to make an impact in the game. Use uninkables. I think especially as a ballpoint, you can use the uninkable areas on this map like really, really, really well. And it makes your life a lot easier as well. So there's reasons to use them. And again, this is where you go into recon and you get more comfortable, because like there might be a certain angle or a certain height, like even in mid where like you're sitting up here or you're sitting on this little mid thing where like generally it feels really bad. But if the enemy team's trying to move in, maybe you can sit like right here and there's like a fall off shot that you can get for people that are trying to approach. And like this is where like there's like little bits of tech where as you get more comfortable with your weapon, you can like look for those opportunities. Or maybe there's a fizzy bomb that hits farther or something. I don't know. I'm just using this as an example, but that's the kind of thing we should be looking for when we're like actually picking a weapon. Overall for inkjet, one of the things is you want immediate, like high impact, basically. You want to pop it and have a play in mind. You either want to have someone that even if you don't get the pick initially, which sometimes you just directed people, like you had some really nice inkjets this game. But even if you don't have those opportunities, as long as you know where someone is generally, or if there's an area that you want to clear, like you want to pop the inkjet and be in a position to help. I think for the most part, your inkjets were fine. There were spots where you can use them faster. Like at least right now in the current state, you can keep spamming them for value. But if you're spamming them, I still want you to be thoughtful about when you're using them. Like if you it's not like, oh, I have inkjet, I need to use it right this second. But if I have inkjet, how can I implement it to get value? Because inkjet is very strong right now. And then the other thing I would say is consistently paint. Just constant paint. The more you paint, the more likely you're going to have inkjet and opportunities where you want it. You know, the more you rotate, the more opportunities you have for good paint, and the more often you're going to be able to get specials. When we're holding in splat zones, we really want to focus on specials. If we have specials ready when the enemy team's trying to retake, we can completely stuff their plans, you know? But, you know, they start using their specials for retake and you have, you know, you're sitting over on this ledge or down here and you're ready to pop out and surprise them with an inkjet. You get one pick there, you can GG the game. It's one of the things in terms of the overall macro and splat zones. I don't want to get too much in depth. The key, if you can retake the zone, and you don't want to like try to retake the zone without specials, if you have specials, use them. But like as an inkjet and as a ballpoint, you paint for inkjet in this current patch super fast. Super fast. So if you retake zone, like if your team's able to retake zone and like wipe the enemy team and y'all have like 2 or 3 specials afterwards, you should be getting massive points. And in certain spots, if you retake the zone and there's a lot of enemy paint just like all over the place for you to paint, if you can be very proactive and fast to rotate and get a bunch of paint that's all around, you know, the middle of the map while these people are still moving forward, taking space, painting for specials themselves, if you can get your specials at the same time as them, like you find yourself in this type of scenario. Even if you initially use your special to retake the zone, sometimes if you're like a splash or a ballpoint and there's enough enemy paint for you to be able to get that paint back, you can build your special and get your special either at the same time or before the enemy team does. And that's where you start, that's how you like KO in zones. That's because you can use your specials and stall for a long period of time. And if you play it right and outplay, then you can like actually get picks. And then after, like if you get, so like if you have control of the zone and you have specials for retake, let's say that you're stuck down here and you can't really move forward. If you win the fight when they're trying to retake, then at that point, we can sit in these areas that makes it really uncomfortable for the enemy team to want to move forward. And that is how you lock out the enemy team. But we have to be proactive to get ourselves into those types of scenarios. I think your inkjet usage was generally fine. You just were a little bit slow and you didn't have as many of them as you probably could have. And again, I think, I'm not kidding. When you were sitting on that bridge, if you were sitting on the uninkables, your paint number probably goes up like 100, 150 points. Just with that alone. Even doing the exact same thing in the game. So overall, hope that helps. Really good gameplay. I see a lot of potential with your usage of the weapon. And I think if you tighten some stuff up, like you'll put yourself into some spots where you'll really be able to start cooking. But you know, as a ballpoint, definitely feel free to like take control of the game. Ballpoint is very much a carry weapon in this meta because of how strong the inkjet is. Yeah, that was an awesome review to end on.